I think it's fair to say that over the next 3 years, we're recording this Christmas time 2025, that Los Angeles will play the leading global role in sport. World Cup 26 coming to Los Angeles, the LA Olympic Games in 2028, and then the World Rugby Cup for the first time comes to the United States in 2029, we think. And obviously, LA will play a significant part in that tournament as well. And our guest today, Dave Klewan, is the chair of the LA Sports Council. He also is the general manager for the most significant golf tournament in Southern California, the Tiger Woods Genesis Invitational, played every year at Riviera Country Club. And that comes along in February, so he's got his hands full there as well. And I think it's also fair to say that not a lot of the sport that comes and is featured in Los Angeles. So did I mention that Super Bowl 2027 was going to be here? All of those entities, those events, and those tournaments have Dave Klewan's fingerprints on them. Dave and I met recently, but we found we had a lot of common threads. In fact, enough to probably knit a quilt. So without much further, I'm Dave Klewan. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate you having me on.
You bet. Well, listen, we're going to get to LA Sports Council and we're going to get to the Genesis Invitational soon enough. But go back a little bit. Tell us how you got your start in the world of sport. And obviously, as the best boss ever name would imply, who your best boss or bosses were along the way.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, I actually originally thought I was looking for a career in sports broadcasting, television broadcasting. When I was in high school, we actually had a 24/7 sports network at the high school, and I actually ran all of our sports production in addition to playing sports. Applied to go to college at Ithaca College in upstate New York because they had an amazing television and radio program, and they let me into the school, but told me that they were keeping me out of the TV program for the first semester, and that I would start it in the next semester. I find out years later they do this with students that were coming in with TV experience to kind of humble them and kind of give a little palate cleanser before they come in and not think they know everything. So while I was there, happened to notice that they had a sports study / sports management program, thought it would be a very natural complement to what I was looking to do, and started in that major in my first semester. Short story is, never switched back to the TV radio side. Fell in love with what I was learning. Thought I was going to go in the sports PR direction. Initially, first internship right out of the bat was with the New York Yankees in 1996, which, as a kid who grew up in Westchester County, right outside of the Bronx, was born in pinstripes. It was a dream come true. Was working on the PR side, writing for Yankee Magazine, and then working with the PR department on things like Old Timers Day and classic events, and it was phenomenal. And I was like, all right, this is going to work. I like this. Next summer, ended up interning for the then Tampa Bay Devil Rays, short season A League affiliate of the Hudson Valley Renegades in minor league baseball, while also being over at MasterCard during the summer. And it was interesting because while I was there with the Renegades, was still doing stuff on the PR and the marketing side, I first started getting kind of exposed to the operational side, because in minor league baseball, you do everything, right? Doesn't matter if it's a rain day. It's not the grounds crew, it's the entire staff out there, along with most of the players too. Very interesting experience, but my eyes started kind of opening up to a little bit of the business world. There's a lot of crossover with our marketing and PR events and the sales department, and started learning a little bit more about that. And when I got back to school that next year, started taken more of the business classes, and still thought I was going to work in baseball. Got out of college, and right before I graduated, I was offered a full-time job with the Yankees down in Tampa in minor league baseball development. Dream come true. And then I happened to go to a sports conference in New York over winter break, and ended up hitting it off with a guy at a table, Dan Keats, who's over with Allstate now. And by the time I was done with that conference, Dan convinced me to go in for an internship interview at the agency he was working for at that time, ISI, which was run by Frank Vuno, who's just recently on the show. And I don't know what compelled me to do it, but I ended up turning down a full-time job with the Yankees to instead take an unpaid internship in New Jersey. And that was kind of the first step to really start rock and rolling within the sports business world. And, I felt like it would be important for me to learn more of kind of the sales functions since I had so much of that marketing background. But while there, I just absolutely fell in love with the sponsorship world, stadium naming rights deals, ticket operations, and, we just had an amazing team there. Basically, everyone who was there at my time were all out there running organizations and teams and businesses and agencies these days because of all the stuff that Frank and Steve Rosner and Fred Freed allowed us to do. We had a young team, and as Frank told you, you kind of trust your team and get thrown into the fire. And at the age of 22, I was doing things that started giving me the confidence that I needed within the industry, right? I started seeing, not only could I create deals, but I could create partnerships the right way. And still don't know what happened to this day, but was out at a happy hour with a couple of our colleagues next door to the office on a Friday night, and one of the guys happened to tell me about someone coming in to pitch us on a professional outdoor lacrosse league. On Monday morning, I played lacrosse in high school, loved the sport, actually stopped playing and didn't play in college because, there's no pro league. What am I doing? I'm wasting my time. Let's have fun in college and focus on my studies. I ended up going back to the office on that Friday night and reading some of the prep work on it, and don't know what compelled me to do it, but I left a voicemail for one of our vice presidents, invited myself to the meeting, and said, hey, heard about this meeting on Monday, played lacrosse, so I'll be there. If there's any issues, give me a call. I was a year into my job there at ISI, and that was probably the best decision I ever made in my life. The league was Major League Lacrosse, started by Jake Steinfeld. Jake and I hit it off within 5 minutes of the meeting, and by the end of the meeting, where ISI said that they were willing to invest into this property and work on it and do the business side, Jake looked at me and he's like, I want this guy on the front lines. So, at the ripe old age of 22, 23, I was writing business plans for a new professional outdoor sports league, looking to try to do fundraising, bringing in new owners, operators, hiring my own boss eventually, as I then decided to come on board full-time to Major League Lacrosse. But it was the most amazing experience. It was the scariest experience, but it was, talk about being thrown into a fire. I remember sitting at the Marquee Group offices, which was part of our ISI SFX roll-up at that time, and sitting in Mike Levine, who's now running CEA's office, as I was looking at literally every business plan for the XFL, AFL, UNBA, USA, MLS that Mike Traeger, his boss, happened to have in the office. I still actually have those original business plans there, but it was just such an amazing experience, and transitioned over full-time with Major League Lacrosse, overseeing all of the league operations, special events, business development, and did that for a few years before I kind of made the foray out here to sunny Southern California in 2003, and thought it was going to be for 2 years. And lo and behold, now sitting here in almost 2026, still living in California, and came out here for the AVP volleyball tour, which, helped me fall in love with kind of the experiential side of the business and what some people may refer to as niche sports. And again, niche is not a dirty word. Niche just means specialized and, delivering value to clients and fans that might not be delivered on other properties. And stayed with the AVP for about 7 years before going over into the endurance world, working for Frank McCourt with the LA Marathon. And then put my own shingle out for a couple of years. And then in 2016, got a call asking if I was interested in coming over to help relaunch the then Northern Trust Open,
Right.
as Tiger and the organization took it over. And it's been 10 years now, and just one of the most exhilarating experiences of my life.
Man, that is a lot.
It's a lot. Those are
Barely.
that's the Cliff Note versions.
Yeah, right. And you barely took a breath on that. So a couple of thoughts, comments popped up into my head. One, Ithaca College, if I have my facts right, is where Bob Iger, the sitting
Yeah,
CEO and chairman of the Disney Corporation, went to
correct.
school. And he
Yes.
started life as a weatherman. And in his own words, it didn't take me long to figure out I wasn't really a good weatherman. So I went elsewhere, which is ultimately what you did. You never got the chance really to be an on-camera weatherman, but you did sort of a very similar and same thing. And then, it's not serendipity, it's not luck. It's, your talent, your character gets you to places that, in your own words, doing the work at age 22, 23, 24 that folks in our industry don't do until their mid to late 30s. And that's a testament to, sort of who you are and obviously how you got to where you are. Interestingly, along the way, you mentioned, the SFX roll up, ultimately all those agencies, and there were a lot of them that Silverman tucked in, became Clear Channel, and then Clear Channel spun off two really core pieces of that enterprise. One, the Motorsports Group, which Feld ended up buying, and it's still on the road out there, right? And the Music Group, which became Live Nation. And I think Live Nation, under the leadership of Rapino, was the one that really laser focused on music. Talent representation, live entertainment, and the venue platform. And those still are the three pillars of what Live Nation does today. So your background is super interesting. I do want to call out the AVP because when I first looked at your CV, you and I didn't cross paths at the AVP, but we both spent a period of time there.
Yeah.
I ran all of partnership and negotiated all of the television deals for AVP from 1993 through mid-year 1995 in the run-up to beach volleyball's debut in Atlanta in 1996, and developed an amazing relationship with the guys at NBC. David Michaels, who was a longtime Olympic sport producer. In the summer, he produced gymnastics. In the winter, he produced figure skating. Still a great friend of mine and also a former guest on the pod. So you and I, as I said at the outset, have more common threads than really meet the eye. Fast track to, you get to LA, you spend 7 years, and I want to say Leonard Armato was pretty significantly in presence in the AVP during those days. How do you get from sort of the AVP, obviously live events, obviously headquartered and located in Los Angeles, to where you are now? And who, whether pre-AVP or post-AVP, would you call out as the best leader or boss or influencer that you've ever had?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I had the privilege of coming into the industry at a very interesting time, in those late 90s into the early 2000s, where there was a lot of evolution, of where the industry was going. When I was at Ithaca, we were one of the few undergraduate programs with a focus on sports management, right? So I kind of came in here with a very laser focused interest of what I wanted to do and an interesting background. And I think because I got exposed to so many things at an early age, of different sides of the industry, right? From the business side to the operational side, it allowed me to very quickly kind of develop that skill set needed to kind of take those next steps. I like to say there isn't much that I haven't done in the industry. I'd say social media is probably like the one thing that I have not specialized on, but, I was never, too proud to not be upside down from a TV tower hanging a banner after a hurricane hit in a storm, for the AVP. It didn't matter that I was heading up sales and partnerships, right? It was that same mentality I learned at minor league baseball, that it's a team effort, right? And you jump in where is needed. You jump in where you think you can deliver value. And, I never kind of worried about that territorial, no, I'm only this, I'm only that in the silo. And I think that served me really well in my growth and development. It also served me well in showing that, scope of opportunities or scope of experience that I had and expertise that allowed my bosses to trust me to do more. I think, as you said, yes, definitely personality, outgoing, always looking for that challenge. But, you continue to do those things over time and special opportunities come up. And, as I continue to be out here longer and longer, and my counterparts, we all continue growing in the industry, we all look out for each other, right? It's the one thing that I love about the sports industry, that as large as it is, as you said, the common threads, I mean, there's so many times I find those with so many people, and we all look out for each other. And we're all there. I don't consider anyone at any sports property in LA my competition for business. Everyone's got a different value proposition, and all tides rise together, and, we'll collaborate on sales efforts when I can. We'll introduce people to others when I can. We'll be there to help them out on strategic initiatives when we can. And I think all those things just kind of continue to build up and help you develop that reputation of being a team player in the industry. it was doing things like that that allowed me to get into the LA Sports Council initially, just because so many people were like, hey, this is something that I think you would find some value in. And I think you can deliver value there. And, you know, is really honored not just to come on board, but to then get, you know, voted in 2020 as the chairman of the board, which I've now been doing for almost 6 years. But, you know, there's just so many bosses along the way that you take little things from. You know, I would say that working with Jake back at the start of Major League Lacrosse, you know, he probably had the biggest complete transformation on me, and just how I carried myself from a confidence standpoint, how I thought about not just building a brand for a property, but even your own brand, and, you know, just having that integrity to just always follow through the right way, to be a straight shooter, and to just take some shots. You know, he's someone that has transformed and reinvented himself so many times, from a fitness trainer to the celebrity trainer on the Stars to an actor to president's council of fitness. You know, there's people talking and, you know, trying to urge him right now in the media to run for governor of California. He's had to reinvent himself, and he's been able to do that because he's not afraid of failing, right? He's not afraid of taking a shot. And if it works out, fantastic. If it doesn't, what do you learn from those mistakes? What do you learn from the things that don't work? And, you know, that's always been my mentality in this industry of, don't be afraid to take, you know, educated, calculated chances. Doesn't mean that, you know, you just do everything that just comes to your mind right away. But if there's something that you feel strong about and you feel like this is worthwhile and is thought out, like, worst case scenario, it doesn't work, right? I've had things that have failed at properties and teams. It hasn't put us out of business. It hasn't ruined our events, right? And if anything, the ideas that came after those were so much more powerful and executed so much more flawlessly because of the experience that I ended up having. So I think taking those chances is a big thing that I learned from Jake. I think, you know, working with Leonard, I definitely learned persistence and how to not take no for an answer. You know, I still would not refer to myself as a salesperson. I'm a partnership person. I sell you partnership solutions and marketing objectives. And so much of that mindset of how I envision going after a sale or how to develop a partnership, I learned while I was over at the AVP. We were selling a property that was hyper local from an activation standpoint, had the national network television, but you had to be creative on how you sold those sponsorships. And, you know, we were always looking to find ways to generate additional revenue, and kept chasing how do we do things the right way. And, you know, not only would I sell the sponsorships to companies, we then ended up becoming an internal agency and activating on behalf of Xbox and Corona and other brands like that. So it allowed that creative juice in my mind to start looking at things the right way.
Well, that's right. I you know, to use your words, you have to be willing to take the shot. Because if you don't, there's a 100% chance you will not make it. You have to take the shot to have a chance of making it. And I love that fearless approach, because there's a big difference between confidence and arrogance, right? There's a big difference between character and drive and energy and selling for selling's sake. You have to have an underlying foundation and a belief in what is being packaged from a partnership perspective. Because at the end of the day, whether you're a league, you're a team, you're a global event like World Cup and Olympics, or you're an annual golf tournament like the Genesis Invitational, in order for those events to be successful, there has to be a very well orchestrated combination between operations, actually executing the event itself, and driving revenues, whether it's through sponsorship or naming rights or ticket sales or premium experiences that are select and higher end, but there's still a marketplace for those. And you have to touch all those points in order to optimize and maximize the benefit of the event, and then never lose sight that the event doesn't exist at all without the talent on the field or on the golf course or on the pitch and the fans that pay good money to come see it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, look, you said something perfectly. It is really about that, you know, connection between what is realistic from an operational standpoint and from a revenue standpoint. I think that's one of the things that, having gone through all of those different sides, it gives me a very unique perspective. When I first joined TGR, I think there was a fear that I was pushing deals not thinking about the operational impacts, but I look at deals from all sides, right? I have to do it, of course, in my role, but just from the background of what I've done for so many years, I'm never pushing even a deal within our company if I haven't thought this through or feel that it is realistic from an operational standpoint, not going to be a burden to our team, and can be executed flawlessly. But when you come in from the outside and all of a sudden, you're changing up the way that things are sold and you're very aggressive on revenue growth, I think there becomes that perception at times that, well, hey, it's a salesperson just looking to get revenue in. And it takes a while for people to understand, no, there's a thought process behind this, right? And it's the way that I work with all of our salespeople and all of our revenue generation people of not every deal is good. Not every dollar is good money. And if it doesn't work for the brand, if it doesn't work to enhance the experience for our fans, for our players, and can be executed where it's not going to crush our team, you have to put that lens with it. There's a lot of deals that we turn down, and, it's a nice problem to have, but you have to have that discipline too of not just chasing the dollars, but strategically building up the brand and the property into the way that you believe. Because as you said, if you have the confidence in what you're selling, if you have the confidence in what you're putting out there, the fans will come, the brands will come. I don't want to say it's easy for anyone to get dollars, but it's a lot easier to get dollars the first time than it is to retain those partners with you and to get them to renew. And to do that, you've got to deliver the right amount of value and the right brand alignment. So that is part of kind of that discipline that I think is so crucial in the sales industry.
No, for sure. And I'll get to the renewal cycles in a second, because you raised a really important point, particularly in the world of sponsorship. But I just want to let our audience know and clarify that when you reference TGR, that's actually the Tiger Woods Foundation.
Correct, yes.
Specifically talking about the Genesis Invitational at Riviera every February, which is has Tiger's namesake on it. And so it's the only tournament on the PGA Tour that Tiger's Foundation is a significant part of, and actually owns and manages, if I understood it correctly, the tournament itself.
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, so the way that things work with the PGA Tour, we are the local operator of the event, right? Everything's still owned by the tour, but we are sanctioned as a PGA Tour property and event, and have been running this for 10 years now ourselves. But yeah, it's the only one that Tiger is the official host. We do have the Hero World Challenge in December in the Bahamas, but it's a much smaller 20 player specialty event. This is our one full-blown event, and it's gone through so many changes since we've been running it in the last 10 years. I mean, we went from a open to an invitational to a select event to a signature event. Who knows what will be referred to by 2027? But we've evolved a lot, and we're celebrating our 100-year anniversary this upcoming February, and it's pretty exciting to be part of that. And that was kind of the allure to me when this job offer came, of taking a property that at that point was almost 90 years old and finding a way to reinvent it and kind of give it an identity. And it's been the LA Open, the Nissan Open, the Northern Trust Open, the Glenn Campbell Open. But as a LA resident, I really don't feel it's had its own distinct identity until we came on board with the Genesis brand. And that's, by design. We really worked hard to make it part of the community. I mean, we're the second oldest event in LA after the Rose Bowl. And, I think we needed to very quickly remind people about that.
Who would know that? Who would know that?
My PR guys know that. My PR guys know that, and they told me that. So, but
that's an amazing statistic.
But it, I think we took that lens of how do we become a more consumer-friendly event? And how do we do things different than your traditional golf event? And, our first year, our whole marketing campaign was welcome to the club, right? We were opening the doors to a private exclusive club, one of the top ones in the world at Riviera. And we were allowing fans into the clubhouse, where that was space that was current in the past used by just the title sponsor for hosting. So we took a different lens. We've grown attendance by leaps and bounds. We've grown our revenues by leaps and bounds. And a lot of that was knowing we're not going to just try to add more and more hospitality. We wanted brands coming on board, open to the public venues, free viewing, things like that just really engaged our fan base the right way. As I said, it was tough being away from there last year due to the fires, but we're so excited to return there in less than 60 days now for the 100-year anniversary. So it's going to be a fun one.
Last year, for those that don't know, due to the fires that were in the Palisades, and got really close to the country club. The tournament was relocated back down here to San Diego. So the course at Torrey Pines was still in great shape because the Farmers Open had, a couple of weeks earlier just been staged here. And kudos to you all for being able to turn that around. I actually had the good fortune to attend the last year's Torrey Pines version of the Genesis Invitational, and that's one of the things that sparked me that got you and I together.
Yep.
So it's one of the, I'm just going to say, more elite tournaments in the entire PGA Tour structure. And if anyone ever has a chance here in Los Angeles to visit or get tickets to the Genesis Invitational, you will not be disappointed, because that golf course is an icon. It's an iconic golf course, and you got to be a real golfer to play well on Riviera.
It's a special place, and I feel so blessed to call that our home, and where I get to work and bring this event to life. And you're right. I mean, it's amazing. It's a course that in 100 years here, the three greatest golfers, Tiger, Arnie, and Jack, none of them won this event at Riviera, right? There have been some LA Open wins when there was at other courses in the past, but it just tells you how hard that course is. But always comes down to the wire on Sundays, always exciting, and it's a great place to really walk and watch golf. Like,
it is.
It's the design's held the test of times, but it's very fan friendly, despite being in the middle of a neighborhood and having zero parking.
I was going to say
Once you get there, it's an amazing experience. But I think we've had a lot of fun with this, and it is home, and the fires devastated our community last year, and the fact that we have this opportunity to return there, to continue raising awareness and to raise money with our title sponsor Genesis on California Rises, utilizing the property, it's so important to us. San Diego was fantastic, and community welcomed us with open arms. The Century Club, who runs the Farmers, all those guys, Marty and Andy, are close friends of all of us. We knew that they were going to roll up their sleeves with us and help us, and it was amazing what we were able to execute in 3 weeks. One of the coolest experiences I've ever had, but also one that I hope I never, ever have to experience ever again for so many different reasons. But it feels good to be home, that's for sure.
Amen to that. And, it's not only about the sport of golf, about the tour, about the broader community of Southern California. And in the wake of that devastation, your words, roll your sleeves up attitude, the Century Club and the folks down here virtually became your operational partners. And you pulled it off in a great way. I know, I was there. It was very cool. So kudos to all of you on that effort. And I'm so glad it's going back to Riviera. It needs to. It's going to be a further salve and healing on, what was arguably the worst, moment in certainly Southern California's history. I mean, won't go back to, 1906 and the San Francisco fires, but,
it was pretty bad. It
was pretty bad.
Yeah. And look, 26 is going to be a great year. I mean, right before us, the week before us, the NBA All-Star Game is here this year. So we're going from NBA All-Star Game straight into the Genesis. A few months later, we're going to have, the World Cup out here. Following year, the Super Bowl. I mean, there's a lot coming here. A lot of burdens. And forget about the 28 Olympic Games coming out as well. But, we have an opportunity as a city to continue to rise up and to continue to showcase who we are, and the resiliency of Angelenos, I think, will be out there and shown to everybody, 2026 and beyond.
There's no doubt about that. So that's a great segue, Dave, to get now a little deeper into your role since 2020 as the chairman of the LA Sports Council. I mentioned at the top that there's very few, if any, large-scale sporting activities. You just mentioned a couple with the NBA All-Star Game coming here in February. Give us an understanding of what the LA Sports Council is, what it does, and how it interacts with all these major sporting activities that come to town.
Yeah, so LA Sports Council came out of actually the 1984 Olympic Games with Alan Rothenberg and the team, kind of starting this as first of the kind of legacy projects coming out of what still is considered the most successful Olympic Games of all times until 2028. I think that we're going to change that narrative.
I think we
On wood.
will.
Knock on wood, and I know all of our friends at LA 28 are hoping, from my lips to God's ears, right?
That's right.
Right now. The original charter was there to work to continue kind of Olympic messaging here in Los Angeles, to hopefully one day bid to bring an Olympic Games back to Los Angeles. There were a couple of bids and efforts over time. And, over the years, they did some other things. LA Sports Awards, which is coming up, the 20th anniversary of that will be in January of this upcoming year that we're going to do over at USC. But, the event was, the company and the organization was really about promoting Olympic level sports, Olympic trials, test events as they were coming in here, even when there were other Olympic Games. But after we helped kind of get this latest bid going, and then Casey and the team really ran with it, we who were there at the time, and I was just joining the executive board, realized like there was an opportunity for us to kind of pivot what the Sports Council should focus on. And when you look across the breadth of this property and this market of Los Angeles, and you look at how many teams, how many venues, how many businesses all interact in that pro sports and amateur and college sports landscape, we felt that we should really pivot to more focus on the day-to-day of the markets, right? How do we deliver value and opportunities to the teams? How do we help new teams as they're coming into the market kind of get situated the right way? How can we be a connective tissue between businesses and others? We kind of pivoted that lens of the property to focus on that. We still work hand in hand with, the major events and the LA Sports Entertainment Commission when they're coming in with the Super Bowls, and support where we can. But we really have tried to focus on the day-to-days of the teams like the Chargers, the Dodgers. We've started a Olympic movement called Ready, Set, Gold, where we put ex-Olympians into schools to help foster education and physical fitness. And that program has just grown exponentially over the last 8 years. Really took off during COVID when we started doing some digital programming that got adapted throughout the entire United States. We have some other events throughout the year. We started an innovation conference, which has been held the last 2 years at the Intuit Dome. So, we really try to kind of continue to put a lens on what's going on here in the marketplace, but more importantly, provide opportunities for people to get jobs, provide opportunities for the brands and the properties to get together the right way, and just support wherever is needed. So really exciting. Going into 2028, we're starting to get some calls about some test events and trials, and those are things that LA 28 is not able to do. So as has been the case in past years, we'll help with some facilities and some support efforts where we can as well.
Well, I want to get a little bit of an understanding about the economics of the Sports Council and how, for example, Ready, Set, Gold works, because that's obviously a program that is community driven. It's a big give back program, and I want to get a little bit more intel on that from you. But first, I will say for the audience that Los Angeles in 2028 will be the first city globally ever to host a third Olympic Games. And I think the LA Coliseum will be the first venue ever to have staged major elements of an Olympic Games, 3. So there are a lot of firsts coming up here in the next few years. I mean, so before I get back to the economics of Ready, Set, Gold, I want to ask you a specific, possibly self-serving question.
I don't have any control of tickets for any of these games right now.
No, that's not.
We can put you in touch with people that do.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you can. And I know you know, and I'm not sure how much you're able or willing to speak about it, but in the news for the last 4 weeks has been the very interesting notion of the UCLA football program migrating away from the Rose Bowl and becoming the third major football tenant to call SoFi Stadium its home. I will give you my opinion. My opinion is if that's a whatever it takes to get done scenario. Mm-hmm. I know there will be, and probably already are, legal maneuverings going on. But as a former UCLA Bruin collegiate athlete, getting the student body motivated to go to the Rose Bowl, as cool a venue as it is, I think pales in comparison to what would be a 6 to 10 mile down the
Yeah.
road migration to SoFi Stadium, the bright, shiny new penny in all of California, right?
Yeah, it's hard, right? And
It's
I
hard.
think this becomes one of those things that when you're a fan of sports and working in sports, right, you may have different feelings on it. From a business standpoint, as you said, it makes all the sense in the world. Why wouldn't you, right? A venue that is as magnificent as SoFi. I mean, what has been built there and the
Right.
transformation that that stadium has done for this city, and just the events that we're able to host and the experiences. It's such a unique place. It is closer to campus than the Rose Bowl, as you said.
Way
It's
closer.
so much easier for the student bodies. I mean, getting to the Rose Bowl is a trek.
It
And there's
is.
tradition, there's history there. And, look, we see this in all markets, right? I mean, there was a, story this morning like, will the Bears move to Indiana? Look, I remember when I was at the Yankees, working at the Yankees in 96, like, I'm a traditionalist. I loved old Yankee Stadium. I was like, they never need to build a new stadium. My first day on the job, walking through the offices, or I would call them the corridors and the canyons, and ceiling tiles falling down, I'm like, oh yeah, they need to move. You start realizing it, and when you start, looking at the additions of luxury suites, right, and the appeal of stadiums, like yes, size of the Rose Bowl is phenomenal. Kudos to the Rose Bowl and to Legends and everyone's that made the investment into the stadium over these last 15 years there. I think they've done a lot to transform the stadium to the best of the ability to add on some of the elements that were lacking, but it still does not have the same economic comparison to what can be generated for a program, for a school. We all know the challenges that the educational sector has, and that has to be taken under consideration of how can you raise money for programs, right? Costs for not just college sports are going up, colleges in general, right? And what it takes. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here. I definitely understand both sides of the equation. And it would be weird. It would be a very weird feeling to not see the Bruins playing at the Rose Bowl. But I've seen stranger things in my life. We've seen NFL teams leave LA, go to St. Louis, and come on back, right? We've seen people come up from San Diego. So this happens in sports. You don't really see this level on the collegiate side, but I think you have to explore it and you have to try to do what you need to do to continue evolving a program.
Right. Well, it has to be explored. And I have one more comment on that, and then I want to get back to Ready Set Gold. UCLA is the only major Division One school. Let's just go back 12 months and call it the Power Five Conference, right? That does not have an on-campus football stadium. It's the only one. And purists would argue that really has over decades been a very debilitating effect on the UCLA football program, because you lose that epicenter of activity, of energy, of on-campus fandom that you see every Saturday all fall long wherever game day goes, right? I mean, you just see it. So being able to get from an iconic venue like the Rose Bowl, and I agree with your point, I've seen more than my share of games that the Bruins have played in the Rose Bowl, back over to the west side in a much closer setup. I think that you're right. The story is yet to be
Yeah.
fully told, but it's not going to be an interesting one.
As I say, never a dull moment in Los Angeles, right?
That's right. That's right. So let's get back to Ready Set Gold, because that to me feels like a really great program, and I want our listeners to understand what it is and how it works.
Yeah, so this is a program where we go with ex-Olympians, and there are some current Olympians that they'll make a little bit of money, but it's really more about how do they help go back into school systems which we know have been decimated with physical fitness and activity. I mean, so many schools, especially here in LA, you've got rotating PE teachers that spend a day at a school and then move on somewhere else. So these Olympians have come in as inspirational for the students. They'll lead them in exercises. They'll develop curriculum that then gets used with the school themselves. But they're talking about journeys, right? They're talking about how sports can be a transformative power for your life, for your opportunities, right? Sports can open doors for you, whether it's from education, careers, etc. So, we've got, I think right now, about 67 Olympians servicing all these different schools. Some are one-offs, some are reoccurring over multiple weeks. We've got multiple school districts, including LAUSD, that we work with. But there's also outside entities like Great Public Schools Now and others that have brought us in to help develop curriculum for others. It's really cool. Love the program, love seeing the reaction on the students' faces, especially when they're Olympians that bring medals with them at times, and just watching kind of the excitement that comes from these kids. Look, some of them are learning about nutritional tips, some of them are learning just about exercise tips, but there's an opportunity for everyone to take something out of this. And I think it's why we continue to see strong growth in demand for us to get into more and more schools. We've had some great financial partners, supporting us over the years. And of course, that's our only limitation as to how many programs we can get into is the financial support. We're a nonprofit with the Sports Council and Ready, Set, Gold. But Ready, Set, Gold is the primary beneficiary of everything we do from the Sports Council. So proceeds and profits from the awards dinner, it's going towards Ready, Set, Gold. Things we do at the Innovation Conference. So, we've really made it more of a focal point of the Sports Council and how things tie together over the last, 5-6 years now.
Got it. And how do we find Ready, Set, Gold? Is there a website? Is
Yeah,
there a
you go to our,
page? How do we get to it?
You can go to our website for readysetgold.com. You can go to LA Sports Council website as well. And, more information up there. There's a bunch of our virtual lessons we post up there as well still that we're doing. So you can still participate from home, show them to your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews. We just want to continue to spread the word about where sport can be a transformative power for everybody.
Well, not only can it be, it is.
Yes,
It just means access, right?
Yep.
That's all it means. Because once the Olympian walks into a classroom or an auditorium or the basketball court, lives will be changed. It's that simple.
100%.
Great stuff, Dave. Listen, we've got a few minutes left, and I always ask everybody a few questions. So you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So family guys, you and I, most everybody who participates in this is a family person. So my question is all around work-life balance, right? Because it's a thing. It really is, especially when, one like yourself has gone through a very, I'm going to say linear, but with lots of twists and turns in the road and no rest for the weary. So from a work-life balance perspective, I'm very interested to know how or if faith plays a role in your family, and if so, to what degree, and how do you as dad lead that effort?
Yeah, so I think from a faith standpoint, we're not a very religious family. So I don't know if I would say faith guides us as much as family values guide us and, understanding what's important, to the family unit. And I'll be very honest, my work-life balance until about 10 years ago was horrendous. Very, very laser focused on work. Some of that by my own choice, some of that by some past people that I worked with, that there just wasn't necessarily that respect of kind of personal time versus the work time and expectations. And it took me a while to kind of retrain myself to learn that balance. I think it was one of the things that attracted me to joining TGR Foundation is, Tiger has put together an organization that is very family friendly, that is very understanding of, like, we all work hard, but there's that balance the right way. And I remember probably one of my first vacations that I took here, I was telling my then CEO, Rick Singer, who was at IBM for years before that, I was like, hey, I'm going to be in Hawaii, but I'll be different time zone, but I'm accessible. And he's like, why? I'm like, huh? He's like, if we need you, we'll find you in case of an emergency, but you're on vacation. Shut the phone off. And I mean, of course, that was music to my wife's ears. She loved hearing that, but it was kind of the first time in my career that I ever had that, right, from both a boss and a leader. And just from an organizational standpoint, the company believes in that. And I think that's allowed me to kind of change my expectations. Again, as my children have gotten older, and whether it's coaching from baseball or just being at their, high school football games, being able to know I can turn things off inside and then get back to it when I need to, has been great. So as a family, I think we just talk about the values of trying to spend time together, trying to make sure that you're present. I'm still a work in progress. I'm not where I think I need to be or where I need to be, but it's leaps and bounds of where it was probably a decade ago. That's for sure.
Well, we are all works in progress.
Yeah.
Just trust me. And we've all had to figure out how to cross that Rubicon in our own way. So that's a great answer, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think so. Someone told me this once before of no one ever says at their retirement party, right, from work, gosh, I wish I put in more hours at the office, right? I wish I didn't miss my kids' sports games, right? I wish I didn't miss, my anniversary. I wish I wasn't. And, I think I took that to heart, when I heard that about 10 years ago or so. And it's true.
It is true.
It's, I've got a son that's going into his senior year of high school and another one that's going into his first sports events. It's almost done, right? And I'm not going to see that again until I have grandkids.
That's right.
And I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss those experiences. So work's going to be there, but those other precious moments, they don't come around again. So, take advantage of them when you can.
True that, for sure. Second question for you. This is really the fun one. Your favorite show, concert, where a female singer-songwriter or a female-led band or act was the headliner?
Yeah. So this would probably be seeing Pink, who I've now seen, I think, 3 times in concert. She is an absolute powerhouse. Always liked her music. My wife loved her music. But when I saw her in concert for the first time, that's when I fell in love with her music. Amazing stage presence, amazing vocals, just even how she puts on a show and what she's willing to do. I mean, look, I saw her at SoFi flying in off of cranes and trapeze artists. I've also seen her do that at Dodger Stadium and other places, but she goes all out. Doesn't hurt that she does a Led Zeppelin cover in the middle of the show every single time, and still one of my all-time favorite bands. But she is just a kick-ass rock star. I mean, forget about saying one of the top female musicians of all time. I mean, she's one of the top musicians of all time. She puts on such an amazing show, and I've never seen anyone walk out of a concert that she does without saying this was absolutely amazing.
That's right. Incredible, not only incredible talent, incredible athlete, incredible presence. And, I watched the documentary on Pink and Carrie Hart, I think.
Right? Yeah, Carrie Hart. Yeah.
Yep. And they take their kids. And I mean, she gets it.
She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing.
And by the way, Led Zeppelin, one of my favorite bands of all time. And if you haven't seen it, I'm guessing you probably have.
Becoming Led Zeppelin?
Go to YouTube and watch Hart, the Wilson sisters, cover Stairway to Heaven.
I will.
It is the most unbelievable performance of all time. They got Paige and Plant are in the audience, and they're both crying watching the performance.
That is awesome.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Third question. You referenced we all make mistakes. I mean, you don't get where you are. You don't have a storied career like you have without having made your share of mistakes along the way. So this is the question. What was your favorite mistake and how did you recover from it?
Favorite mistake. This one might go back to our first ever Major League Lacrosse game. So again, young guy, this is Summer Showcase Tour. So it is 2000 here, right? That we're going out. I'm 23, 24 years old. We're in Columbus, Ohio. I'm entrusted to develop and operate our entire first event. Great, go out, we get signage. We're doing field signs along course. Yeah, they happen to start melting because I ordered the wrong type of materials, not thinking about the heat of Ohio over 4th of July weekend. We're at Columbus Crew Stadium. I'm in a panic. I don't know what we're going to do. Of course, we're putting the signs up the night before the event on the field as I'm getting yelled at by the guys who were managing the soccer pitch that I can't even step on the soccer field that we were transforming to lacrosse. And I got saved by our signage vendor. They were based out in, it was just a company that I used for the first event here in Ohio. And the guy who ran the company literally printed and reprinted things overnight, drove up with his entire team, worked with me and my team, installed all of our signage. Everything looked amazing. It was fantastic. And I worked with this company for 15 years after that until he ended up leaving the company. And they did everything for me from AVP, wherever I was across the country, because I knew no matter what, these guys were going to have my back, right? They were not my vendor. They were my signage partner, and they were in the trenches. And look, we're doing something with you. We're going to help you out. We're going to fix it. And it just helped me learn that like no problem couldn't be, offset, but don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to, go and lean on others. And, I saw very quickly how the network rolls together and how you have to, kind of help people out of some of those binds. Now, that was probably one of 47 different mistakes that went on that first event, but that one I definitely remember just from the way that we kind of got ourselves out of it.
That's a good one. And it doesn't matter whether you're on the supply side or the demand side, your word partnership and doing whatever it takes to meet the objective, regardless of which side of the desk you're on, is super important. And what results is a long-term, very valuable relationship in the marketplace.
We also sat all the fans on the wrong side of the stadium, not thinking about where sunlight goes and TV impacts, and only had a hold play for 30 minutes as we introduced cheerleaders to lacrosse, and Jake kept sending them out probably 5 times and they got booed off. So like we had cheerleaders crying. It's amazing I stayed in the sports industry after that first event, but it was a fun experience.
Yeah, right. Murphy was alive and well, whatever could
Yeah,
go on.
seriously.
All right, last and final question. It's my favorite one, and it's an important one. Words matter. We all know that. Specifically and importantly as a leader, it's what you say, and oftentimes it's as important as to what you don't say. So the question is your favorite word and why?
Perseverance. Perseverance is my favorite word. I think it's what drives me. It's what drives my coaching of staff, right? We are always going to face obstacles. There's always going to be an uphill climb. I don't care how talented you are. I don't care how strong your property is or your product. You're going to face adversity, right? And you're going to have to persevere to get done what needs to get done. I don't want to say I like hearing no. I like having doors closed at me, but I like that challenge of being told this isn't possible, or no, we're not going to go in this direction. And if you feel strongly about something and you persevere, in my opinion, you can accomplish amazing things. So it's just a word that, with all the obstacles thrown at us, it's utilized and it's in the back of my mind almost every day.
Well, it's not just a word for you.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle, exactly.
It's a lifestyle,
You live the
yeah.
word, which I love. Those are the most important and the best words. Dave, I can't thank you enough. This has been a fascinating episode and session, and I know our audience is going to love it. So kudos to you. Thanks so much, and best of luck, I guess, on the next thing on your plate, which is Riviera in February.
Yeah, 60 days away.
All right, man.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks for having me on.